Right now, our guest on the show, Komal Nahta, who's a leading film trade analyst, Ravi Rai, who's a film and TV writer, and also producer and director, Manoj Desai, executive director of G7 Multiplex and Maratha Mandir Cinema. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us right now. Let's start with Komal Nahta ji. Komal ji, what a sad day if you're a Indian film fan in any way, Indian cinema fan, because these are the sort of talkieces that actually defined Indian cinema. These are the sort of theatres that actually made the heroes into superstars, superstars into megastars, and so many memories that people actually have about watching a cinema in a single screen. Now, talking about this particular cinema, Chandan Talkies, do you have any anecdotes, any stories from the past? Why was it so special for Mumbaikars?
It was special for several reasons. One, it had ticket prices which were very affordable. Secondly, since a lot of people live in the Juhu locality, a lot of film people visited the cinema. So you got the pulse of the film industry at Chandan Cinema. I had gone to see Dabang, I still remember. And oh my God, it was such a mela. And I had taken my non-film friends. You know, they're all chartered accountants and all very studious, and they couldn't believe what they were seeing because they had not visited a single screen cinema, especially for a Salman Khan starrer. When they saw people whistling, clapping, screaming, shouting, they just couldn't believe, and they thanked me. They couldn't thank me enough for having given them an experience which they would have otherwise never known. So I think. That is the reason why single screen cinemas were so special. In multiplexes, you don't have the audience applauding like they do in single screen cinemas. The multiplex audience is a little more guarded, a little more careful in how they react. And therefore, a laughter will convert into a smile. There'll be no guffaws. There'll be no huge rounds of applause. Of course, sometimes, but exceptions only prove the rule. The rule generally is that you get better reaction in single screen cinemas than in the multiplexes.
Absolutely. Netaji, in fact, like you rightly pointed out, it was not just about the story, it was not just about the actor. Cinema in India, it was a collective experience. People went out to actually have a good time, and not just the people that they went out with, but also it was a collective experience. It was a celebration, it was an experience. Now, what did iconic theatres like Chandan play in shaping the cinematic culture of India? Because it almost became a template. There was a hero who behaved in a certain way. There were certain dialogues he used in every movie. There was a villain. He also had his own signature style. How did single screens actually become such a crucial part of the movie going experience in India?
See, before the multiplexes came into being, I think we had only single screen cinemas. And since films were like a religion in India, they continue to be. Films are religion in India. Therefore, I think cinemas defined our entertainment experiences. And movie watching is always and always a collective experience. I always say that you may call 20 friends at home, but the experience of watching a film in a cinema can never be replicated at home because the collective laughter, the collective sighs, the collective rounds of applause, the collective whistling, clapping, you cannot really replicate it at home. And that is why every single screen cinema was important. Plus the typical or the mandatory popcorn and samosas. The aroma of the samosas used to be so wonderful. The popcorn in your hand and probably a cold drink. Today you have in the multiplexes service at your seat. But that actually disturbs the viewers because the one who has placed the order, yes, he's excited that he's getting VIP treatment. But what about the others? In the single screen cinemas, there was nothing of that sort. You had to get up from your chair, from your seat, go to
Right.
the counter and take your popcorn or samosa or cold drink. At the most, there were these three things available and probably a water bottle. But today you have huge variety of eatables and drinks, but they intrude on the viewing experience when they serve inside in the auditorium.
Absolutely. You're making a very interesting point here about the popcorns and the samosas, because the problem now is with the prices that you see at multiplexes, it's almost as if the movie is the side dish. Everyone's gone there to enjoy samosas and popcorns, and they just happen to watch a movie because it's playing there. I think it's become that sort of an experience now. And before we go to the guests today, we also need to talk about what exactly is the reason behind the decline of single screen cinemas in India. Like, for example, the Chandan talk is it just the economic pressure? Is it the changing audience behavior? People go there to have a great time. I mean, we're talking about samosas and popcorns here, or is it the multiplex boom? While also at the same time, we have a lot of these streaming platforms also coming up. What exactly is the reason why single screen cinema is not able to keep up?
Variety of reasons. First and foremost, most of the producers have stopped making films for single screen audience. They cater to the city audience and the multiplex audience. The multiplex audience, sorry for the for want of a better term, I would say they are a little more evolved. But the single screen audiences still want their hero, their villain. They want action, they want emotions, they want everything. They like to see masala films. Whereas today's makers cater to the multiplex audience because the ticket rates in multiplexes are much, much higher than in single screen cinemas. So it makes sense for them to cater to that audience, commercial sense. Therefore, the audience in the single screen cinemas are almost alienated, and therefore films don't work in the cinemas, in the single screen cinemas. Secondly, the cost of maintaining and the cost of running a cinema, the single screen cinemas cannot bear that high cost because the footfalls at those cinemas are much lower than in multiplexes. And I think here is where the government could step in. The license fee for cinemas is pretty high. The municipal charges, the show tax, in some cases, the show tax is randomly increased and not just doubled or trebled, but it increases 4 times and 5 times. Now, if someone were paying a show tax of 200 rupees, suppose he has to pay all of a sudden every show, you pay 1,000 rupees. Imagine for 28 shows, 200 at the rate of 200, it's 5,600. But at the rate of 1,000 rupees, it's 5 times that, which means 25,000. Now, these are very high ticket rates. I think what the government can do is rationalize the tax structure for single screen cinemas, also decrease the electricity tariff for single screen cinemas, because it was the same government, all the state governments had given a lot of SOPs for multiplexes to mushroom. Now that the multiplexes are already up and running, it is the turn of the government to do something for the single screen cinemas, because without government intervention, without subsidies and concessions, it is almost impossible to compete with multiplexes